So Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1929, at the start of the Great Depression of the 1930s. And my father was thrown out of work and put on the dole, which was 29 shillings a week. That's £1.45 in today's money. And although things were a lot cheaper then, it was still a struggle. And I remember we were in poverty, and at one time it got so bad that when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I can remember going out into the farm fields and stealing vegetables so that my mother could feed us. And that went on for about 10 years, and then came World War II. And on the morning of September the 3rd, 1939, at 11 o'clock, Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister, made a broadcast to the nation. And we had an old radio set that was worked by an accumulator because we didn't have electricity. And I stood there by my mother, and I remember his words well. He said, he finished the speech saying, "And I have to tell you now that this country is now at war with Germany." And all the air raid sirens all started wailing, and it was thought that Hitler was planning a gas attack. So we'd been issued with gas masks, and I hated them. You had these masks that fitted tight to your face, and I hated the smell of the rubber over your head, with a visor in the front, and then on the end was a round filter about that thick, and inside the filter it was filled with asbestos powder. We didn't know that at the time, and when you think of all the fuss they make now about asbestos, we would actually be breathing it in through these gas masks. Well, when the war ended, and during the war there was not much education. We had 3 half days a week was all we had, and I suffered with dyslexia. So when I left school at 14, I had scant education. I went to work on the railway, and that was during the bombing and the V1 rocket, not rockets, well the rockets came later, but that was the flying bombs that came then. And I did that for 2 years till I was 16, and then I worked on the buildings, digging trenches with a gang of Irish labourers, until they called me up at 18 and I served my 2 years national service in the army. But when I came out, I went back to work on the railway, and cash betting back then was illegal, and they had runners that sort of collected the bets up and took them to the bookmakers. Well, I found that I knew with my mental arithmetic was the only thing I was good at school, so I could work the bets out and calculate it, so I started running my own book. And I left the railway and found a back office in Tonbridge High Street, and I opened up as an illegal bookmaker. And that went on until 1964, when the cash betting was legalised, and I expanded the business and carried on at that for about 30 years. Well then, Jill and I married in 1955, and I bought the place down here in 73, and we moved down in 74, and I got the horses, and we lived the good life here. Of course, we had big vegetable garden, and I had a little vineyard where I made my own wine, and that went on until Jill died in 2017. And then my nephew Grant and his partner Richard moved down to share the property with me, and I began writing again. I'd written 4 books in the 1980s that had been published under my horsekeeping series, but I hadn't written since then. And the book I wrote turned out to be my autobiography, and I submitted it to several publishers, and to my surprise, one of them came back with a contract, and that's how lucky can you get came to be.